Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be going over 1984, Chapter 2. We're doubling up today, Parts 6 and 7. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Part 6 was super short, so I just thought I'd combine it with 6 and 7, and it ends up being right around 10 pages anyway, which is our usual MO for the last few parts episodes that we've done. They've been right around 10 pages, so I thought it was easier. Hey, let's just knock out two parts in one. So today we're going to be talking about parts 6 and 7. Lots of interesting things happening, especially in part 6, even though it's the shorter one. We have a big momentous breakthrough with Obrien. And let's just hop right into it. As you can see here, lots of exciting things happening. Winston is at work, and he's right around the same spot where, if you guys remember, Julia handed him the note that said that she loves him. It's right around that same spot where Obrien is going to give him a message. But it's not a message that comes in the form of a piece of paper. It's a subliminal, nonverbal message. So what ends up happening here? Well, Winston notices that he's kind of being followed. Somebody's behind him. And it turns out this person behind him, when Winston turns around, is Obrien. And now Winston is like super nervous about this. And again, this is right around the spot where Julia slipped him the note. So that is kind of interesting that the same spot where Julia handed him the note is the same spot where Obrien meets up with him. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if Orwell meant to do that, like to kind of harken back or like a callback to when Julia also handed him the note. I don't know. But Winston is super nervous. I don't think he's expecting this. And it says his heart is bounding. He wants to run away. He's incapable of speaking. And they don't really talk much. Remember, guys, they just had that one glance back in chapter 1. The glance that Winston interprets as, I'm with you. I believe in the same things that you believe in about the party. This is a corrupt organization. I want to break free from it. This is a prison. And then he's also had dreams about Obrien, too, that they'll meet in the place where there's no darkness. But they don't really talk much. Winston's super nervous. And Obrien is going to pay Winston a compliment here. He says that he's been waiting for the opportunity to talk to him. And he's been reading some of his work. His work on the articles of the Times where he's, remember, rectifying messages. And he says, oh, Winston, you take a scholarly interest in newspeak. And Winston's like, oh, gosh, shucks. I'm only an amateur. I'm not an expert at it. I'm just doing my job. But Obrien says, no. You write very elegantly. And this isn't my only opinion. Now, I have a blog post about this, and I lay out two reasons why Winston believes Obrien is sending him a message about the Brotherhood, a message about the revolution or the counter-revolutionary group that exists among Oceania that wants to overthrow the party and Big Brother. Two reasons. One of them is going to be this right here. Obrien says that, you write so elegantly, and this isn't just my opinion. I was talking to a friend of yours recently who is an expert on newspeak, but his name has slipped from my memory. He just can't remember it. And of course, that friend is Syme. Remember, Syme is Winston's comrade, quote unquote friend, who is working on the newest edition of the Newspeak dictionary. And he's just been unpersoned, vaporized. He's been wiped clean from the record books. So it's dangerous for Obrien to even mention Syme. It's dangerous. You don't want to do that because he doesn't exist. And just by you promoting that name out there of a person that doesn't exist, well, you're kind of going against the party in a way because the party's the one that vaporized him. So for you to just keep bringing the name back up, it's like, well, what are you doing that for? It's just asking for the party to come at you, basically. Because he never existed. That's the thing. By you just mentioning his name, it's almost like, no, this guy existed once and the party killed him. But the party's MO here is, no, we didn't kill him. He just never existed. So you're directly going against the party's like message there. So that's one reason. Obrien offers Winston a chance to come look at this new edition of the Newspeak Dictionary. And he's going to offer for him to come over to his house, to where he stays, his residence. So Winston gets all excited here. He's like, oh my gosh, the conspiracy is real. Obrien essentially just named an unperson, a person that never existed. So now they're both accomplices to this. He's letting him know, like, hey, I know about your friend. I know that he was unpersoned, right? He's acknowledging that he exists. Because if this were any other person, they wouldn't even mention Winston's friend because he never existed. But at least Obrien is mentioning him not by name. He never names Syme by his name. He just calls him a friend. But this is all Winston needs to know. Hey, this conspiracy is real. The conspiracy is real. That's the first piece of evidence. The second is O'Brien's going to give him his address. And according to Winston, you just don't give people your address. It's so hard, especially for the inner party. Because remember, Obrien is a part of the inner party. So he's kind of higher up in the political structure of Oceania. And you just don't give people your address. Dude, he doesn't even know where Julia lives. And now he's getting an inner party member's address. So that's the second piece of evidence that Winston believes this whole thing is real. The conspiracy is real. The brotherhood is real. So next thing you know, they're basically laying out plans for Winston to come over and view the Newspeak Dictionary. See, this is all the front. Oh, come over, look at the Newspeak Dictionary. Hint, hint, wink, wink. We're going to actually introduce you to the Brotherhood. Potentially. Again, Winston's going off just the look. All this is stemming from the look that Obrien gave him back in chapter 1. I hope it's real. I hope it's real, and I hope it leads somewhere. So Winston ends part 6 here, laying out like the succession of his evolution throughout the book. I don't know if that's too dramatic to say that, but he says the first step had been a secret involuntary thought. Down with Big Brother. Right? Maybe even something, no, maybe it was down. I know he writes that in the diary, but okay. Single involuntary thought. The second had been the opening of the diary. The last step is in the ministry of love. And I think this last step, so the first thought is just, the first step here is the thought. The second is the action. The third is, I believe when he mentions here something would happen in the ministry of love, it's something to do with Julia. And possibly the ministry of love is where you get married. That's what I'm going to guess here. So this is kind of like the succession of steps. Okay, first, it all started with the thought. Hey, this party's corrupt. Second, it started with the actions. Opening the diary, down with Big Brother, going to research the proles, buying that room, renting out that room in Sherrington shop, having a relationship with Julia. The last step, marrying Julia, living life on my terms. Boom. Next, we get into part 7. Part 7, we found out a little bit about Winston's past here. And Winston wakes up to like a terrible nightmare. So Winston has a dream. He remembers his dream. Somehow his mother is a part of the dream. But his dream makes him have a memory that he forgot about. And that memory is of his mother. Okay, so I had it kind of backwards there. The dream initiates a memory of his mother that he kind of forgot about. He's pushed it way back in his consciousness. He's with Julia at this time. He kind of wakes up. His eyes are full of tears. Julia gets woken up in this commotion too. And Winston remembers. The memories that come back to him are... Hang on, let me flip the page here. He remembers his mother, and then he remembers just times of what the times were like when he was a child, when he was smaller. He remembers air raids, never having enough to eat, piles of rubble, gangs of youths, enormous queues outside the bakeries, so people waiting in food lines, intermittent machine gun fire. His father had disappeared too. So these are all like the memories that are rushing through him. And he mentions that when his father had disappeared, his mother completely changed. So why did his father disappear? I'm not sure. But his mother did not show any surprise or any violent grief, but a sudden change came over her. She seemed to have become completely spiritless. And I kind of write here is she's spiritless because she's waiting for the same fate to take place with her. Is she going to disappear for the same reason her father disappeared or her husband disappeared? And she's just kind of just mailing it in. Just, it's going to happen someday. Might as well not even be happy. Something like that, It was evident to Winston she was waiting for something that she knew must happen. So again, is she just waiting for the thought police or the law enforcement to come and take her, kill her, or put her in a forced labor camp? And Winston kind of describes his mother after this incident. She moved very slowly, curious lack of superfluous motion, an artist's lay figure moving of its own. So it's almost like she's like kind of just depressed, just, I don't want to say like moping around, but she has like no enthusiasm, right? For hours on end, she would sit immobile. She would take Winston in her arms, press her against her for a long time without saying anything. So it's weird. She's holding on to Winston. She's not even saying anything. It's almost like she's doing it because she has to do it, but there's no real love behind it. Much like when Winston and Catherine were married and having sex, Catherine didn't even want to do it, but she wanted to. She wanted to have a baby for the party, but Winston described it as like not even like that pleasurable. She was kind of like pushing him away at the same time they were doing it. So there's no real emotion behind it. So here we find out that Winston was kind of a brat as a kid. And again, these are kind of the memories that are rushing back to him. Winston, again, was always hungry and wondering why he didn't get more food. And every mealtime ended up being like a battle between him and his mother trying to get more food. And he would shout at her. Like, I can't imagine Winston doing this. Like, the picture we get of Winston as a kid, completely different than the Winston we know now. Winston felt he had a right to the food. He's constantly yelling. He's trying to get his way. And just start to think about where else did we see this kind of behavior before in this book. Think back to chapter 1. One day, he steals his sister's chocolate ration, and he zips out the door, and his mother is coming after him like, Winston, come back, give your sister back her chocolate. He stopped, but he did not come back. And I'm just reading from the book here. His mother's anxious eyes were fixed on his face. Even now she was thinking about the thing. He did not know what it was that was on the point of happening. His sister, conscious of having been robbed of something, had set up a feeble wail. Something in the gesture told him that his sister was dying. He turns, he flees, and when he comes back, his mother's gone, his sister's gone. So I have no clue what happens here. Something gets triggered, whether it's maybe the telescreen recording the actions of this event, or whether Winston, when he leaves, it doesn't sound like it, but maybe he rats her out to the thought police for being a bad mother. They come and steal her away. Or the telescreen caught everything on camera or on their sound recording device, and the thought police came and again took her away, but she has disappeared when he comes back. Scary. Winston essentially is responsible for his mother's disappearance. And he mentions to Julia earlier, do you know that until this moment, I believe I had murdered my mother? And he's like, well, I didn't murder her, not physically at least, but he made her disappear by his actions. Now, where do we see this before? Where else do we see this? In the Parsons children, remember? When he met the Parsons children and they're yelling and screaming at him, die, you Eurasian soldier, you're a traitor, you're a thought criminal. Winston was doing the same thing with food. Like, I have a right to that food. He's yelling. He's trying to get more food, steals the food. And remember, Winston said that he felt sorry for Mrs. Parsons because he knew that one day she will be more afraid of her son. And maybe that's the dynamic that's happening with Winston and his mother. She is immobile, not a ton of emotions, because she's afraid of her son turning her into the thought police. And when he runs out that door, she must think, oh God, this is that day. Will they come for me? Now, I don't know the reason for that, just because he runs out with the chocolate ration. Again, I don't know. It's not clear if he goes to the thought police or not and like tells on her to the thought police. It doesn't really say that. But perhaps her son running out on her reveals something to the telescreen. Something gets alerted that, hey, she's a bad mom. Her son's out of her sight. Because remember, the Parsons child, the son, throws something at Winston as he's leaving the Parsons apartment. And Mrs. Parsons has to drag her son back in. So maybe she knows, hey, if my son gets too far away from here, that could do me in too. So that's why she's adamant about dragging him back into the apartment and not letting him get too far away. Could be. So Winston and Julia kind of talk a little more. He's telling Julia the story, and Julia says, oh, I expect you were a beastly little swine in those days. All children are swine. Yes, but the real point of the story, and he doesn't really finish the thought there. And here's where Winston starts to talk a little bit about what the party can and can't make you do. We'll get into that I think coming up here in the next few slides. But the party had convinced you that impulses and feelings did not matter. So if you love someone, you loved him, and when you had nothing else to give, you still gave him love. When the last of the chocolate was gone, his mother had clasped the child in her arms. It was no use. It changed nothing. It did not produce more chocolate. It did not avert the child's death. So when he leaves right before his mother disappeared and he rushes out the house, out the apartment, his mother's hanging on to his sister, but he's saying the party has convinced you that none of that matters. That's not going to bring back the chocolate. That's not going to bring back your son. You're still going to disappear. They made you disappear either way. And he likens this to the movie that they're showing back in chapter 1 of like that war film where the mother is shielding her child. And it didn't avert their death, and it didn't really matter. They ended up dying, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at chapter 1. I don't want to do it right now. Unless I find it right away. Here we go. Party seats a woman down in the prole part of the house. 20-kilo bomb. Then there was a wonderful shot of a child's arm going right up to the air helicopter with a camera. Right here, shouting. They didn't showed it, not in front of the kids. They didn't. And until the police turned around, I don't suppose anything happened to her. Nobody cares what the pros say. Typical pro relaxation. Oh, no. That's little boy screaming, trying to burrow, right? Okay, yeah, okay, it is here. So they're watching this war film. He's writing about this in the diary, and he's saying, oh, the little boy about 3 years old in her arms. Little boy screaming with fright, hiding his head in the woman's arms. Women putting her arms around him, comforting him until she was blue with fright. And she thought that the bullets could keep, her arms could keep the bullets off them, but obviously they can't. So it's like none of this matters. Excuse me. So they keep talking. Winston mentions the proles, and he really kind of envies the proles in that they were still able to stay human because they still had a loyalty, but where Winston and Julia's, or like the party members, their loyalty is to the party or Oceania, or that idea that Big Brother has of INGSOC, war. God, I forget it now. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Big Brother is always watching. Like those ideas. The proles are just loyal to each other. And they've held on to the primitive emotions that the party has driven out of its party members. You can't love anybody. You can't have lust over anybody. You can't really be happy. You shouldn't be showing emotions on your face. But think about it. That doesn't happen when Winston visits the proles. People are singing. Children are playing in the streets. People are going to bars, having brewskis. And he kind of envies the proles. Remember, he had mentions to Julia, hey, why don't we just run away and become proles? Basically. The best thing for Winston and Julia to do actually would be to never see each other again. And they talk about this. We're getting to the end here. Every time they see each other, they're risking their lives. And it's only a matter of time, Winston says, before, they're gonna die. The party is gonna get to them. Right? They're only delaying the inevitable, he says. And it's only inevitable that once they find out about the relationship, they're going to, or if they just get to one person, they'll make one person confess. And Winston and Julia talk about this, and, confession, they talk about how confession is not really the betrayal, the stopping the love, not loving each other, that's the betrayal. They're betraying their emotions to each other. And this is what Julia says, hey, the party can't make you do this. They can't make you feel it. Julia says they can't get inside of you. Your emotions are the impregnable part. Yeah, sure, they can tell you what to say, what to do, but in the end, what's inside of here, they don't know that. You can think however you want to think. Isn't that what Winston's doing? Yeah, he's going to work. He's doing the things he does. Participating in Hate Week. Julia goes to the 2 minutes of hate. She always screams the loudest, goes on community hikes, this, that, and the other. But deep down, she hates the party. Those emotions are impregnable. And this is what Winston says. The ultimate goal is just staying human. And how do you stay human? You keep those emotions. Keep those emotions. They can't make you feel it. That's up to you. That's up to you. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it. These are the discussion questions. And I will link to the blog post down below. Let me know your responses. If you have any questions. And check out the Chee-Tash blog. I'll link it in the description too if you want to check out my responses to this. Guys, thank you so much for listening this far. I really, really appreciate it. And that's going to do it. Next time we'll do part 8. Part 8 next time. Chapter 2, part 8. Guys, thank you very much. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care.